and we're only getting about mid 40 frames per second. Oops, I just ran over another player. Hey, what's up everyone, Nob here, and if you recall from my $170 extreme Overwatch budget build, I only opted to put 4 gigs of RAM into the system. I had 8 gigs on hand, but I wanted to only put half of it in to save an extra $10. And the reason for this is because when you're trying to push the price down, it gets a lot harder and you have to start scraping the bottom of the barrel anywhere you can. And you see a lot on the either tech forums or like PC gaming articles or just anywhere around the internet that a lot of people have come to the consensus that for gaming, 4 gigs of RAM is all you need for the bare minimum if you're not doing other tasks that require more RAM usage. If you're not running a lot of things in the background and if you're only gaming, you only need 4 gigs is what they say. But I'm starting to see that that's not the case anymore with modern day games. I'm starting to see games eat up a lot more than just 4 gigs of RAM. In the original gameplay and benchmarks, I only tested The Witcher 3 and Overwatch because I knew that the system would still perform relatively well playing them with only 4 gigs. And a lot of people have been asking me, hey, can you test that against Grand Theft Auto? So we're going to do that in this video. I'm going to test it with the 4 gigs of RAM, and you're going to see that the performance is really, really bad. But then I'm going to add the additional 4 gigs to bring it up to 8 gigs, and you're going to see what the difference is going to be between them. And since I'm going to have the additional RAM in the system anyways, I'm going to also go back and test The Witcher 3 and Overwatch to see if the RAM helps out there. This is going to be a pretty gameplay and test heavy video, so let's get right into it. So the worst part about Grand Theft Auto Online has to be the loading before playing. This game takes forever to load, and especially if you're not on a solid state drive. Like on my main computer it's fine because I always put Grand Theft Auto on the solid state drive, but for a spinning hard drive for like all these budget builds, every time you load the game up it takes forever. Alright, so let's look at the system monitoring in the top left there. So the RAM is being fully utilized, the CPU is running at almost full capacity, and the GPU is not doing anything yet, which makes sense because we're in a loading screen. Alright, so we're in game now, and let's look at the graphics settings to see what the default is set at. So, let's see. No MSAA. We'll turn VSync off to see if we can even try to get over 60 frames per second. Not sure if that's going to happen. So population density, so those are all pretty high, and then everything else is kind of high. So this is pretty much high settings. So in the garage, the RAM's already maxed out, CPU is maxed out, and we're getting in here, wow, we're getting almost 70 frames per second. Okay, and there's some stutter right there. So let's see how we do when we go out into the main streets. Alright, we're outside. So okay, so we are getting fluctuation anywhere between almost 0 frames per second and anywhere up to 40. Yeah, this is pretty bad. When I tested all the other systems with like 8 gigs and 16 gigs, the RAM usage was always like 6 to 7. So the 4 is really struggling right now, and you can see that with how jittery it is. Yeah, the CPU and GPU aren't even at max load right now, but the RAM is, and this is pretty bad. So I would definitely deem this as unplayable, because if you're playing online or doing anything, you're not gonna have a good time. So let's shut the system down and add in the extra RAM and see how that changes the performance. So here's the additional stick of RAM. Putting this in will bring it to a total of 8 gigabytes. So I'm going to have to add $10 to the total price, but that only brings it up to $180. But we're going to see how this improves the system. If I can get this in here, because I have this horrible cable management going right across the motherboard. And come on, there we go. We're already utilizing 5.5 gigs of RAM in the loading screen. Everything else is looking good. Alright, so we're in game. Let's look at the settings just to make sure we have everything the same. So 1080p, MSA off, population density, all that stuff is either maxed out or pretty high, and everything else is on high. Alright, so we're in the garage and we're already utilizing almost 6.5 gigs of RAM. CPU is fully loaded and GPU is fluctuating, but we're getting 70 frames per second in the garage, so let's see what we get when we're outside. Alright, and it's raining. It's drift time. Okay, so CPU is at max load. We're almost at 7 gigabytes of RAM usage. Oh man. So we're fluctuating anywhere between 40 to 50. Alright, so we just crossed into 7 gigs of RAM usage. CPU is at full load pretty consistently. And the GPU is surprisingly only at half load. We're playing Grand Theft Auto Online, which is considered a modern AAA title on high settings on a computer that costs $180. I'm definitely happy with these results. Alright, so let's go on foot and see if the frame... Okay. I should have waited for the car to stop. But now that we're on foot, we're in the 70s. So it's kind of fluctuating between 60, mid 60 and 70s. Let's blow stuff up to see if the explosions will cause any frame drops. Okay, I can't aim. Nope, I'm about to blow up my own car. There we go. So, dip to 50. Okay, the GPU it looks like it could be worked a bit more. So let's try turning up the settings and seeing what we get doing that. We're gonna max out population variety, and we're gonna change... Oh, okay, that kind of kills the video memory. We're gonna change all these to very high. We're gonna have a mixture between high and very high settings. So now we gotta wait for it to load again, but let's see how we do. Alright, we're back in game. Everything stayed the same. Yep, very high on most of them. Okay, so somewhere between high and probably borderline very high. So, alright, look at the GPU usage. There we go. It's higher than earlier, so that's what we want. Actually, I want to take a different car. But let's see how we do with the higher settings. Alright. So, oh man. Okay, GPU usage is slightly higher. RAM usage is approaching 7 gigabytes. CPU is under full load, and we're only getting about mid 40 frames per second. Oops! I just ran over another player. Yeah, we're dropping to like 30, mid 30 frames per second. And honestly, I don't notice this looking that much nicer. I personally like, you know, anywhere from medium high to high graphic settings. Anything above that, you're seeing this frame drop. Alright, we'll just end the Grand Theft Auto 5 benchmark here because I got the results that I wanted to for the high settings. So let's revisit Witcher 3 and Overwatch because now we have 8 gigabytes of RAM in the system. Alright, so we're in Witcher 3 and even in the title screen we're already using more than 4 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm going to set it to the same option settings as what we did last time. So it was medium on graphics, and for post-processing it was low. So if you remember, the frames we were getting was 35 to 40 frames per second on these settings. So let's see what the 8 gigabytes of RAM does here. So we're utilizing 5.5 gigs of RAM. We're in the mid 30s. Even though we're utilizing more RAM, it doesn't look like we've gained any frames. So we're floating around the 40s. Come and kill these guys. Alright, well, looks like that makes no difference. We're getting still around 35 to 40 frames per second with 8 gigabytes of RAM, even though we're using more than we did before. I don't know what to say about that. I'm not really sure how to explain this because we obviously saw that in Grand Theft Auto when we increased the RAM, the frames definitely got way better. We're definitely utilizing more RAM this time around for The Witcher 3, so I honestly don't know. I don't know everything, guys, so if anyone actually knows the answer to that, please leave that in the comment section below so that we can all learn something here. But alright, let's check out Overwatch. Ooh, Tracer. If you remember from last time, what we had for the options was basically high settings, and what we got was around 40 to 60 frames per second depending on how much action there was on the screen. Like when there was tons of people and a lot of shooting going on, it was down to 40, but we got anywhere up to 60. So we'll see how we do now. Also note that I'm not running anything else in the background. I'm just playing these games, so this is how much basically the game is using. So we're not really dipping lower than basically 50. I mean, we're getting like, oh come on, I pulled him and then I died. Alright, so it dipped to 48 there, but that's still definitely better than what we had last time. So we're staying pretty much at a constant 50 or higher FPS. Oh, come on. So it's kind of hard to tell because the game still definitely fluctuates, but I'd say that on average the FPS is higher. It's for the most part 50 to 60 FPS. Dang, we lost. Alright, so as you can see, the frame rate was basically better in terms of the minimum. We didn't really go under 50 frames per second too much, so the average was definitely better. And I guess the take-home message from this is that the difference in price between 8 gigabytes and 4 gigabytes isn't that much. Like in this case it was $10, and it was definitely worth the $10 to get the 8 gigs just to play it safe. You saw improvements in Grand Theft Auto. You didn't see an improvement in Witcher 3, which still puzzles me. But in Overwatch, you saw an overall average FPS increase, as well as the minimum also got better. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like. And if you haven't subbed yet, then please do so if you enjoy the content. I'll just see you in the next one. I'm going to get back to playing more Overwatch. Bye.